MHS team members and the president, Saiful, for giving me an opportunity to use this podium to share our research outcome. So basically, this study will try to navigate the multimodal environment in a case-based curriculum in Malaysia in early medical students and their likely learning preferences while being there exposed to that. So this is the roadmap which I will try to go through in these next few 1 hour or so. So let's reiterate some of the key features of CBL very briefly and its relevance in relation to our study and what we actually do in our medical school. Now, actually, one of the main doctrines in medical education nowadays, developing clinical problem solving skills, and that to be in the early stage of medical training. So this can well be done using authentic or simulated clinical problems. When we actually lay down a clinical case, we expect that the student will pass through this and they would be simulated to use the higher order thinking skills. And for that to ensure, we need to have some kind of specific pedagogical strategy so that we can maximize the gain. And case-based learning is one of them because it is an inquiry-based learning method and it helps establishes the deep learning approaches and thus making the meanings of the materials that are presented to them in a much more holistic way. Civil is also linked with active learning strategies where learners may use various learning styles to internalize the information based on the situation. And thus, we think that it causes some kind of bridging the theory into clinical practice. Now, actually, when we extended our review of literature, we found some information about the learner's nature in the CBL environment, about the general delivery mode, and some key recommendations of the CBL. And I'll try to just go through in a very, very brief manner through these things because it is quite linked to our study. Now, if you see here, Luzon, the medical educationalist, actually stressed that although facilitation of CBL is the responsibility of the teachers like us, learners, CBL learners should be seekers, processors, constructors, and managers of their own knowledge to enable the clinical knowledge construction. And I think that they should be taking their ownership of their own learning. Now, if we look at the delivery modes, we have found that in our review of literature that McLean's worldwide review on CBL stated that the method of delivery of CBL varies. And the most common one has been the live presentation, okay, and followed by computer or web-based teaching, and then mixed modalities along with some others like live and wave, live stimulators, etc., etc. The mixed modality generally corresponds 19% of the CBL delivery modes across the globes in various healthcare settings. And actually, we delivered CBL in this mode in our present study. Now, as far as the recommendation is considered, since the aim of the CBL is to achieve the critical thinking and clinical reasoning and all those deep learning kind of stuff, innovative multimodal teaching methods have been proposed. And if you see here, the scientist Lee also has stated that CBL pedagogy strongly flavored with active and interactive learning strategies are highly required. And it has also been reported that they can influence the student learning style. Now, just to give you a small overview that how we practice the teaching in our medical school, because this is also linked with our paper. So basically, if you see here, it is designed with generally teaching and learning strategies to be student-centered, and it is learning outcome-driven. And we ultimately try to create some scenario or situation so that students receive information in diverse way, as you have seen here in this figure. We actually deliver 25 cases across the year 1 and year 2, 13 in first year, 12 in second year. And the cases were introduced with core clinical presentation, and students were conditioned basically to experience resource materials in multiple ways. We also use MLE, just like several other schools that use their own learning platform. So this is called as medical learning environment. And these are actually being allowed to access by the students from the day one. Now, the core modules that we teach here, like basic sciences, anatomy, public health, social medicine, clinical and communication skills, professional developmental skills, these are all generally delivered by lectures, small group sessions, practicals, MLE-based materials, so that we can ensure that learning issues are identified, along with some timetables elements like case launches, clinical reasoning, and case roundups, and early clinical and community experiences. So we hope that these acknowledge various learning issues of the students, and the cases generally covers a range of clinical presentations and problems that could probably prime the students effectively for their clinical years. Now, you can ask me why such study has been done, and we have found that such diverse teaching modalities can be very much challenging and require students to adapt to different learning methods, especially in such a curriculum which is relatively new in this part of this world, especially in Asia and Southeast Asian region. So more importantly, another point is there that the first year medical students experience these things in a new learning environment. So they require some kind of adjustment because they are in a phase of transition from school to college and then college to university. So what we have tried to do, therefore, we have tried to find out some learning styles of the first year medical students in this CBL curriculum. We have also tried to find out the strategies that are generally being used in the CBL curriculum, and we'll try to find it out, does the CBL modalities facilitate knowledge integration into clinical context or not? So all these things are actually being followed by our methodologies, which I'll come to you later on. So in this methodology, we would say that we have used a mixed method study. So basically, we use our participants and year one MBBS students who actually experiences the CBL mixed modalities. We took the ethical approval both from NewMed and Newcastle University, UK. And while we collect the data, anonymity was ensured while receiving those informations. Now, if you see here, our study recruited students by convenience sampling method, and the population was sampled across the first year medical students who homogeneously experienced the CBL curriculum. So we can feel that the clear generalizability has been maintained. Briefing was done, and then ultimately 142 students participated. So basically, we can say it in two phases this happened. So in the phase one, after recruitment, we administered Feldersman Index of Learning Style Questionnaire, which I'll come in a moment later. And we actually given or administered that almost after 6 or 7 months when they are already get used to those different modalities. And then the data were collected. So this is the quantitative data that we have collected. And the phase two actually pertains with the live experience where we use the focus group discussion. So FGD recruitment generally was performed through emails and written consent was obtained. Those who accepted the invitation. We also take the verbal consent prior to the FGD audio recording. So generally we did 3 FGD sessions around 9 9, 8, 10. So these are 28 participants in 3 sessions having 60 to 90 minutes. So the data was transcribed verbatim and we used the software Atlas 7. Now let's see here, just to talk a little bit briefly about the questionnaire. So this is the ILS skills index of learning style by Fielders, and this has got two opposing styles. And if you can see here, there are 4 dimensions are there in this table. And if you see here, this is the scale shows below how informations are being handled by each dimension, starting from processing, perceiving, receiving, and understanding. Basically, this questionnaire has got 44 questions. So 11 questions in each dimension. So 4 into 11, 44. And each question requires a binary response, either yes or no. And that ultimately leads to an odd score between -11 to +11. So don't take those minus and plus. These are nothing but the directional preferences. So if, for example, if we talk about a skill like sensing intuitive, so if someone is ranging between +3 to -3, they are well balanced. If it is +7 to -7, in between that, +7 to +5 or -5 to -7, they are moderately preferenced. And if they are around 9 to 11, then they are strong preference. So if someone is +9, we can say that that student is strong preference towards sensing. So this is about the questionnaire, what we have actually adopted. Now let's see about what kind of results we have received basically from the quantitative aspects. So if you see here, this is a table that I have just pasted over here from our presentation, I mean to say from our study. So we found that the female participants predominant in our study were Malaysians overshadowed the internationals, having a mean age range of around 19.5 years. Out of the Malaysians, ethnic Chinese leads to be top, followed by Malays and Indians. However, that statement has not been shown in this particular table. If you see the lower part of this table, it shows that the preferences adopted by the year 1 students. And this is the part, and they showed preferred combination in the form of RSVISEQ. That means that this is the combination of reflective sensing, visual, and sequential. That particular choice has been taken by 25% of the cohort students. If you see here, there are various involvement are there, but the percentages are different. I'm just in a moment showing you how the dynamics are. Now, this is basically the frequency of learning preference from processing to understanding. Okay, and I'll explain here mainly based on the well-balanced perspective. Though this figure actually reflects all the dynamics of the student's learning preference across various domains. So let's see first what this figure suggests directly. So this figure suggests that learners are well balanced with sequential global domains around 66.2% first, followed by sensing intuitive around 60%, 59 point something, followed by active reflective 57% and visual viable area 51.41%. So although the balance has been seen in this figure, but shift in the preferences were also observed more in reflective, sensing, visual, and sequential domains. We found biggest differences within domains for visual versus verbal, followed by active versus reflective skills. So actually we got some significant difference over here, but I couldn't show that part in a table format in this particular area. But we have found significant differences over here. What is interesting that we didn't found a single student to be strong verbal in nature. So this overall picture therefore suggests that the participant utilized multimodal learning style in their CBL exposure. Now let's talk about the qualitative results a bit. Now generally, 3 major themes with 5 categories emerged from the focus group data. And I'll go through one by one to them. So the first theme, if you see here, emerged from 2 categories. And the main theme says that CBL mixed modalities steers learners' learning style. What we found that even being coercive in some instances, students enjoyed various learning modalities that they are generally exposed to compared to their previous learning experiences, for example, maybe in school or even in college. They admitted that some modality teaching closely matches with their style and henceforth uh, it looks very productive for their learning. They also brought forward the issue of learners' autonomy that is being favored in this curriculum and found highly important to satisfy the student needs, uh, mostly probably to broader achievement of the goals. Now let's go to the second theme part of it. So the second theme emphasizes that the multimodal learners' active learning strategies, scaffolded learning. So one of the categories where from the theme is derived depicted that the student felt CVL active interactive approaches, be it direct, that means in the form of role playing or clinical skills or small group teaching, promotes the interaction, or in the indirect ways, for example, in self-study, which includes tutorial, MLE based, app dependent gamification, had actually teased them and had been found very useful. We also found in the category 2, if you look here, that the pedagogical skills of the teacher to impart active strategies in large and small group setting was also found important by the student. Uh, the student also valued the CVL formative practice questions as they perceive it to be as robust self-assessment tool, even when the lecturer presence is almost remote or nil. So they felt that this encourages their motivation and deeper learning and ultimately could probably aid in closing the gap what they have learned throughout the course. Now I'll try to move on to the last theme. The third theme is a widely accepted fact. We have not discovered anything new, but what we have found that uh, the the CBL model it is facilitates theory into clinical knowledge. So we actually find that part and it actually consolidated the same fact what has been already mentioned everywhere in the review of literature. It emerged from a single category that says that CBL realistic case presentation actually facilitates integration of knowledge, and this has been done by different relevant techniques, uh, probably at the backdrop of scientific and clinical awareness, because they are having those things by using different kind of mode of delivery like case launches, clinical reasoning, clinical skills, case roundups, all those kind of stuffs. So they found these things is very important and provide some kind of linkage to their clinical knowledge. Lastly, to say something about the discussion and summary aspect, what we have gathered so far. So majority of the students reported to use different combinations with some priorities over one another. So maybe visual over verbal, reflective over active, something like that. And this is quite inherent and helps student to accommodate in lifelong learning, especially in medical schools. The current study also reported that these preferences could be because of contextual influences, such as the learning content, teaching and learning methods, or the type of assessments that they generally encounter. I just want to share one point over here that students in our cohort prepare flashcards of their own, and they use visual resources provided by the teachers in the different form, like in flowcharts, timeline, videos, models, and that might help them to ease the retention process as normally as well as during their time of exam. Now let's see here what we have found as a summary for our study. Now several active learning strategies were highlighted in the current study, but some gained most importance. The active interaction which took place through the role players with realistic patient condition gained the popularity along with TBL session, team-based learning. This later one, basically, we use in case roundup sessions. Students also reported that the socialization aspect is very, very positive, like communication skills, like cooperation with such techniques. They found it very, very useful. These actually all suggest that the significance of active interaction using clinical case scenarios. Uh, the study also reported that resources provided by the MLE promoted self-directed learning effort of the students because they perceive that these SGL sessions actually cultivate their learning. And questions from each case help in gauging their understanding and further learning. That means creating a kind of stimulating environment for their learning processes. Lastly, we have found that actually we believe that the integration of theoretical knowledge into clinical knowledge was aided by two main courses. So the first one is the clinical case construction with real patient anecdotes that actually have some kind of realistic impact to the students and help them to immensely gain their knowledges, to get the clinical clues that may help them to create some kind of differential diagnosis in their early career. Secondly, uh, the intra and interconnectedness inside the likelihood cases actually facilitate the students to link their informations, and that might be also helpful in getting those clinical knowledge what we have perceived afterwards after our study. So these are all about the discussions aspect of our study. And lastly, I would try to say something that what I found a bit of strength and some kind of limitations for our study. So for the strength purpose, I would say that it is an exploratory mixed design method, which means any quantitative limitation will be counterbalanced by the qualitative findings. And this study may act as a guide for medical school implementing CBL. However, from the limitation point of view, I would say that this study was conducted in a single medical school and who are adhering to spiral CBL curriculum. Uh, and therefore, we may say that these findings are very, very specific and, and difficult to generalize as such unless and until the same curriculum, same method of delivery are being implemented. Lastly, I would says thank you to all of you for your kind attention and again giving me the scope to explain my research work and share my research work to all of you. If you do have any questions, I'll be feeling happy to answer